Hey everyone, Pesach is right around the corner.
Literally, I think we're like 2 weeks in, right?
The anxiety is real.
Right. So while you're scrubbing away, listen to this podcast. You'll really enjoy it. It's Hindi Kalmenson. She talks about relationships. She's actually the CEO of Relation Shift. I took her courses. Amazing. You guys are going to love this one.
Welcome to the Mommy Life Squad podcast, where we talk about
Everything women want to hear about,
which may get controversial,
but definitely inspirational. So stay tuned. All right, so Hindi, welcome. We're so excited to have you. I took Hindi's class called the Relation Shift, right? And I feel like I gained so much from it. The reason why I feel like we had to invite Hindi for this time frame was because Pesach is coming up around the corner. And what I've been reading in all the Jewish publication magazines, the Ami, the Bina, the Family First, is one underlining thing that it's the most stressful time of the year, not only because we are, cleaning our homes and getting ready for Pesach, but actually because we have to deal with so many relationships that, let's say, people who are coming from out of town, let's say in-laws, and that's like, it's hard to navigate and make sure that there's shalom between you and your spouse and make sure you're making the other side happy. And I actually found it very fascinating that it said, like, there was like a psychologist who wrote in saying that it's very interesting because her practice is always full right before Yantif and right after Yantif because of this reason.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
Wild.
That's a lot.
So tell us, help us navigate this stressful time, both within ourselves and then also with our relationships with our husbands and our in-laws and all that.
Okay. So first of all, I just want to say hi. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for asking me to come and to speak about this with you. And I do agree, it's such a necessary time to speak about relationships and how to navigate them. So I think one of the first things that as women we want to first talk about is this is a really intense time period. We're about 2 weeks away from Pesach, and this is crunch time. And I know this is probably the furthest thing from most women's minds, but what I have been telling most of my clients is to be really intentional about what those next 2 weeks are going to look like. And I don't mean planning which shelf to do when and which, area of the floor we're going to scrub with a toothbrush. I'm talking about taking care of yourself and making sure that you're also replenishing yourself, your feminine spirit, your well-being, and on all levels, because now more than ever, there's a lot of triggers. It's very easy to start getting super frustrated at your husband and snapping at your kids, and that takes all the fun out of preparing for Pesach. And it is our mitzvah. So what can we do to make this less stressful, less of a heavy burden, and more something that maybe that we not necessarily will enjoy, but something that will lighten the load? And I'm not talking about you have to get a massage every single day. I'm talking about taking ownership over your well-being. So whether that looks like while you're cleaning, lighting a candle, or taking 5 minutes to do a yoga pose before diving into the kitchen shelves, whether that might mean learning something about Pesach. I recently was feeling the stress, and I thought, you know what? If I take upon myself to learn a tiny little thing about Pesach every single day, it will just feel so wholesome once I get there. I want to experience the theme of Pesach, not feel like I'm falling asleep at the Seder. Right. So if I'm intentional now, then I could also be intentional about what my Pesach is actually going to look like. So I'm kind of shifting gears here, but we're so good as women at planning ahead and really being focused on what's going to happen and preparing for all the pitfalls. And I'm wondering if we could also do it in a way not just to protect ourselves and make sure that bad things are not going to happen, but if we could also prepare ourselves for what we want to create over Pesach. Like, what do I want my Pesach to look like? If I'm having guests, what do I want the theme to be? And I don't mean like a theme like the colors theme. I'm talking about like, what do you want to be spiritually experiencing throughout Pesach? So a lot of it is stepping back, being intentional, and saying, what do I want?
Right.
And really going inwards, like, what do I want physically? What do I want emotionally? What do I want spiritually?
But it's also like going into that, it's like kind of like you want your kids to have a positive view on Pesach, and if they just see, and I was thinking about this the other day because I was so overwhelmed and stressed, and I'm like, mommy is just stressed these like 2 weeks before Pesach. Guys, you have to understand, like I'm stressed. And then I thought about it, I'm like my kids are gonna have a negative association towards Pesach, and I don't want that. I don't want that. So then I'm like, oh no, I have to shift gears. I have to like step back and like look at the whole picture.
Yeah.
And like we don't need to like stress out about the little nitty-gritty details about everything.
Right. I wonder if there are moms who are like, yay, Pesach is coming. I don't know.
Right.
Like,
so that's a little bit
extreme.
that could be really hard. Maybe some women are out there like that, and we could segue into what we can do maybe to create a little bit of that energy. I think it's, again, like what you were just describing, like, oh my goodness, I don't want my kids to have a negative outlook on Pesach. That's like more heaviness, like that's a stress on top of the stress already. And I think what's important is to kind of like dial back into, what do I want? And if I could take care of myself and I could stay calm, at least within myself, I'm creating a sense of calm, and my kids will experience that. But it's pretty heavy to start trying to shape your child's experience on top of everything else. It's just worrying about too many balls in the air to be juggling.
Right.
Yeah.
And how can we like navigate this whole situation with making sure that your husband's on the same page as you, or you're on the same page, but we're all in the same book, hopefully.
Right.
But how do we get on the same page with our spouse?
So Rena, you want to actually be a little, like you could be a little bit more,
Not
not like
more
personal,
specific.
but like more specific.
Hey, you take it away. You be more specific.
No, but there's so many issues that can come up now. There's so many things, like whether to go away to a program or stay home.
Oh, okay.
And like,
Even that.
there's so many things that come up, or like setting up the table. To you, it's a big deal. To your husband, it may not be. Like there's so many things that go into it.
Yeah, that's true.
This holiday, and especially this year, there's so many meals. Like, who do we eat by? Do we eat by my mother or your mother? There's so many things that go into Pesach, and I feel like there's like a stress on the relationship because of that.
100%.
Yeah. It's a really good question. I think a very important thing to remember is when a woman marries her husband, she's marrying this person who she hopes and believes will be a good person and is good to her. And sometimes, I know this may sound funny, but when we're stressed, we could also forget that. We could forget that he's a good person, he's not trying to hurt me. Even if his suggestion feels outlandish, he's not trying to create more stress for me. Sometimes we're just so in the zone and we're in that tunnel vision experience because of the stress and the overwhelm. It's hard to actually really hear what he's saying. Right. Like, I know, I'll just share with you personally. So my husband said, oh, I just found someone who koshers kitchens. And immediately I started feeling triggered. Why? Because I have always koshered my own kitchen.
Oh my gosh, that's the funniest thing I've ever heard. Why would that trigger you?
Because I have this.
Like, am I not good enough?
It's like,
no?
Right? Am I not good enough?
I'd be like, hallelujah, I'll take it.
Right. So you're much better at receiving than I am. But for me, I was like, okay, so then like a financial stress could come up. Like, why should we pay someone when I could do it myself? Or another story could be, why don't you do it, right? Why don't you help me do this? Why are you just hiring somebody else to do this? Why are you throwing money around? It's a stressful time. A lot of women can relate to this. And instead of me just hearing that he's also just giving a suggestion, he's just throwing an idea out there.
Make so I don't easier.
And it's also to make my load easier.
And he would have been fine with you saying no, right?
Right. He could have, like, if I could have also just, first of all, just received that he's thinking about me.
Exactly.
And he was thinking about the kitchen. Like, that's so nice. My husband, who works every single day and he's very invested in what he does, he was actually thinking about how to make my load easier.
Right.
But in the past, I would never have even heard that because I'm in my zone and I'm very stressed, and I'm also maybe stuck in my my stories of lack of value, right? So for example, and this comes up a lot for women, where there's a lot of, let's say, comparisons with Pesach. So the first time I ever heard about, like, let's say Pesach pajamas, I never heard of such a thing, that people buy Pesach pajamas. Did you ever hear about this?
Like for kids?
Yeah.
Okay, but
No, you mean like to wear at the Seder, or like?
Yeah, to wear at the
Oh,
Seder.
no, I've never seen that.
Oh, so this is a thing that
Oh.
people go and they're buying their Pesach pajamas because they're going to be together with other cousins, whatever. And this is something I never even heard about. Another stress factor,
What's
right?
the Shabbat pajamas? You know,
Right.
Shabbat.
My
pajamas
son
or
has
Yom
like
Tov
lots of
pajamas.
pajamas from last year that we saw on Amazon, but nothing like a theme or
No,
coordination.
they're like prettier. They're like nicer.
Oh, like Jewish brand ones.
They're not, or I don't know. Yeah, probably.
We're out of the loop. Okay.
Apparently.
Okay.
So why am I bringing this up? Because so many things come up with Pesach, and there's always new schemes, ideas, and trends that if a woman is not feeling very confident and seeing her own value and just happy within herself, it's very easy to get caught up in what everybody else is doing and what she has and what she wants and what my mother-in-law wants me to do, and you basically lose your center because you're feeling this lack of confidence, or you don't see your essential value. And
Because your emotions are based off of everyone around you.
right, exactly. Or your decisions are based on what other people are doing, or your beliefs about what I should be doing, and it's all very much like based on premises built one upon the other. You don't have to have Pesach pajamas, but a woman could get very caught up in it, and suddenly like this becomes her focus of the day, and then she can't hear anything else because she's in this mode of just like surviving, because she feels like her value or her confidence is on the line. So something that is important is to kind of bring yourself back to, I am Hindi Kalmenson, and whatever happens over Pesach, it doesn't reflect on whether I'm worthy or not. I'm still me, and I'm still going to be celebrating Yom Tif, and it's going to be beautiful, and I don't have to feel like all these trends or details will define me, because that could really have a negative impact.
Wow, that's very powerful. Actually, it's going off on a little tangent here, but I actually read something in the Family First this week. It wasn't this week's issue, but it was one of the old ones, and I happened to have stumbled across this article that was "Fake It Till You Make It." I don't know if you read it, but it was so fascinating because it was like women, like, we tend to have these situations with other women more so than men do, let's say, and kids, right? We're stuck in this, and especially with social media growing. So it was highlighting the fact that everyone will perceive you the way you, what's the word? Like, you come out towards other people. Like
If you're more confident,
project
yourself.
Yeah. If you're, if like you can pretend to be like a super confident person, but really lack a lot of confidence inside, and people won't even realize it. So in this, like, I feel like we're constantly worried about the judgment we're gonna get, and we're not good enough, and we're not. But like, you project whatever it is, and eventually you will grow to be that.
Think about like when you go to a wedding, and
Yeah.
this happened to me before, and I feel like I look. First of all, there's two examples, right?
Yeah.
One time I go to a wedding, and I like feel like I'm not like, I don't like my outfit, I don't like my shoes, even though I look fine. But I don't like the way I look. I'm so self-conscious the whole wedding.
Right.
But if you go into a wedding loving your hair, loving your makeup, you're going to be like not self-conscious, and you're able to like, you're projecting more positivity, and people look at you differently as well.
Yeah.
Because of that.
100%.
Yeah. The opposite of that line, or I guess the line that I appreciate better, is be real until you feel real.
Oh, I like that.
Right?
I like that. That's a better
Because
version. That's a better.
Be real until you feel real.
Be real until you
Yeah,
feel
you know
real.
what? I like that version a lot better.
Right? Because we are really
Yeah.
whole and worthy, and we are Hashem's children, and what you're wearing doesn't really affect who you are. Like, you are essentially valuable, just who you are.
I love that.
And so if you could get back in tune with that, then you could actually project yourself as who you truly are, which is whole, beautiful, perfect, the way Hashem sees you. Not
But can I ask
broken.
you? So I know, like, we don't have this so much specifically in Pico. There's like we don't have this pressure of like how to dress our kids. Like, I'm so grateful for that.
Well, we kind of like, well, very, very little, not as much as La Brea, but yeah, go on.
Or not as much as the East Coast.
Oh, for
I'm, like,
sure
comparing
not,
it to the East
for sure
Coast.
not.
Like, we don't have that pressure. Like, I could dress my kids in kitty chic last year and I'm fine.
Yeah.
Like, as long as my kids look nice, like, it's okay.
Yeah. We're never in season.
No, but when there is really that pressure, people do actually, I feel like people do judge you based off of that in the East Coast. So there is that pressure, and it's like, you could, like, show that you're confident, but I don't know if that makes a difference in that case.
Oh, because then they're going to be like, well, you're clearly not dressing with the codes. So, like, what are you doing? What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a really good
And also
question.
people who are going to programs, because I'm sure some people listening are going to programs and they feel like they have to dress differently for every single meal.
Yeah.
They have to dress their kids differently. That's a big pressure.
Yeah. And a huge expense.
Yeah, especially on top of the program.
This year too, especially because it's like extra
meals.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a very challenging thing to think about. So here's the way that I would look at it. As someone who really tries to challenge the code. Not that I, chas v'shalom, I'm going to purposely not dress my kids well. Like I want my kids to look presentable, but I think it's also important to come back to what is really important about Pesach. It's about the Yom Tif. Like, I'm dressing my child for Pesach, for this holiday of redemption. It's supposed to be freedom. And to me, like, worrying about what other people are going to think about me feels like shackles. That feels like imprisonment. It feels like Mitzrayim.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't give space to it in my mind.
So I'm trying to bring this home. You gave this example of the Pesach pajamas, which again we haven't heard of. But
good.
Say that this happens. Say like we're getting together with all the cousins on both sides, or whatever it is. Like the in-laws are coming, or whatever, and all the cousins are coming to your house, and they all have these matching pajamas, except for you and your children. Mm-hmm. So like, oh, horrible, right? But in my mind, this remind me that line, not fake it till you make it, but let's be real
until you feel real.
Until you feel real. Mm-hmm. So like, if you access that right away and you actualize it, like, oh my gosh, this is so cute. Next year, maybe I'll find out about this and I'll do it, but maybe not. Or like, what would you say to that? Like, how would you make that real and hit home without it affecting you and affecting your children who see that, you know, they're like, why didn't we get these pajamas?
Oh, right. Can I talk from a child who was that?
Yeah, oh, please, yes.
No, I mean, I remember we used to always go to my cousin's house, and they were from New York, so they were, like, cool and with it, and we were from Baltimore, and we weren't. So my cousins used to always wear Shabbat robes, and I didn't have a Shabbat robe. I had a Barbie little nightgown, which I used to wear, but I still remember till this day the fact that I didn't have that. And my parents would have gotten it for me, probably, but...
Did you feel so deprived?
Yeah, I'm saying the same thing with the Shabbat pajamas, even though it's something so simple, but to a child... not having it, everyone else has it. Fine, for us, like, okay, our child won't have the pajamas, but for the child itself.
And what were your parents' reaction? Just like,
I think they just didn't know what it was.
They didn't care. Like they
didn't know what it was.
And you didn't complain to them.
No, I guess, yeah, they didn't know what it was.
Right. Okay, so Hindi, what would you do? Say everybody comes to your house, they're all wearing Pesach pajamas, and your kids, you didn't get the memo.
Right.
Or you got the memo, and you're like, I'm not gonna fall into peer pressure.
Oh like, yeah. Well, I feel like then your attitude would automatically change because you walk in with this confidence. I knew about it. I refuse to do it. It's silly. And I want my kids to wear, first of all, I think kids should wear like Yom Tov clothes, like not pajamas. Like I think that they should wear, unless these pajamas look like Yom Tov clothes.
So that's beautiful. Meaning what you're uncovering for yourself, which is so beautiful, is like, not so much that I'm going against a trend, because I wouldn't want to do that at the expense of my child, you know, feeling left out or bad about themselves. But what you're imparting to your child is, I have a value.
Right.
We show up to the Yom Tov table wearing Yom Tov clothes.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Mm-hmm. That's exceptional.
In that moment, what would you say and do?
If my child came to me asking me why we didn't get the Yom Tov pajamas and I had been informed about it.
Or not informed. Let's do not informed first. Yeah.
Let's say it's a Pesach program, because I don't want it to feel like, because, right?
Yeah,
this is a...
Yeah, very general. Okay.
A theoretical question. So let's say we come to a Pesach program and all the kids have been playing with, they all come up with their New York, Pesach pajamas. And my kids are from LA and don't have Pesach pajamas. So I think, again, the important thing is to look at yourself and say, do these Pesach pajamas, or the fact that I didn't provide Pesach pajamas for my kids, define me as a mother? Am I a terrible mother? We as women get so extreme sometimes. with our like flopping between I'm a great mom to I'm a terrible mom, that we're never actually really acknowledging that we're really human and we're doing the best we can. And I think it's important to be more gentle on ourselves, especially in a situation like that, and also to just come back to it's okay. Like, it's so okay to not have exactly what everybody else has. It doesn't define me.
It's like teaching your child that you don't need to have everything that your friends have, and like maybe in the future, if this is so important to you, maybe that we could discuss this. But
yeah,
right.
Yeah, 100%. And to have that open conversation is so important.
Okay, and then
do you want to like segue into?
Yeah,
I think there's something that we want to discuss is more of like this pressure of. I know people who are eating at home specifically, or maybe it's like going to in-laws' house, going to your parents' house. There's this family pressure.
Right. Yeah, I had a friend call me up and say, like, she doesn't have the means for a Pesach program, but she's like really, really trying so hard to go to a Pesach program, and she kept bringing it up, but she also brought up the fact that she didn't have the means. So I said to her, "What's your drive? Like, what is it? What is it coming from? Is it coming from social pressure? Because that's a big drive."
Yeah.
And she was like, "No, none of my friends are going." I'm like, "So what is it coming from?" And she right away said, "If I stay home, I have to be with my in-laws, and I'm trying to avoid it." So let's segue into that, because it seems like, just like I read in the Ami and the Bean and the Family First, and it just seems to be highlighted every year. Like, why is it so difficult? What makes it so challenging during this time?
It's a good question.
Or maybe advice on how to work through that.
And then advice. Yeah, let's figure out the problem.
Yeah, so I don't know what the problem is, because it could be a myriad of problems.
It's true, yeah.
It could be different standards. It could be just the stress. Everyone is stressed because Pesach has more regulation than usual. Some people literally don't eat over Pesach, so there could literally be a hunger factor. So if you gave me a specific example, then we could work through it. In general, when we're looking at another person and saying, I'm me and you're different, immediately there's a lot of disconnect. And I find that a lot of people do that with in-laws. Like, I know my parents, and even if I don't get along all the time with my parents, I'm not saying that about myself, but let's say a woman says that, at least I know the animal. You know what I'm saying? I know who this person is. I know where they come from. I've been there. Right. It's familiar. It's me. It's my identity, whether I like it or not. As opposed to an in-law, or let's say a husband, as soon as I start seeing difference, a lot of fear comes up. And as soon as fear comes up, it means that I'm going to feel defensive, I'm going to feel distant, I'm going to feel like I have to protect myself. And if I'm in that energy, already I'm setting myself up for failure. Because there's an energy of, I have to protect myself from you, I'm putting up walls, my energy is literally protection, putting up boundaries. And if I'm doing that, I'm letting the other person know that I'm not interested in connecting. I'm not interested in figuring this out together. And that's something to really look at. Like, what is my energy when I'm facing my in-law or facing the other, whoever that is? Is it one of trust? I'm open. I'm willing to work with you. I'm willing to have like this flexible conversation. Or is it I'm feeling stiff? Like, you could even check in with your body. Like, a lot of women, if they check in with their body, they will notice. A mother-in-law walks in and they stiffen.
Wow.
You know, or like they start cutting the vegetables a little bit differently because she might be looking over your shoulder. They feel an intensity come up for them. And if that's happening, then that means that they have to regulate a little bit and see, is there a way that they could look at the in-law or look at the husband or look at whoever is the other that's different than them right now? Is there anything there that they could see that they can connect to? Is there something about that person that I feel is relatable? Is there something about that person that I appreciate? Is there something about that person that I'm grateful for, that I can trust? Because that will ease the energy of distance instead to be a little bit more open and flexible, fluid.
Okay, that's a good point. I like that.
So it's just so I understand it. So it's recognizing that the person who's coming to your house, for example, your in-law, is not different than you.
It's not the enemy.
Is not the enemy.
Not the enemy.
But even if not, maybe it's just like because it's just too often. I don't know. Like maybe it's just too much.
Meaning they're coming over too often, and you're overwhelmed.
Right. Maybe it's just like an overwhelmed thing. It's not like necessarily. Maybe they have a great relationship with their mother-in-law or their cousins or whatever.
Pesach is a very, like, I guess every situation is very unique, but it is very much a together time. The meals are long, they're dragged out, the kids are already tired from the night before, you're edgy, you're tired, you've been in the kitchen for hours. So, like, there's a lot of already, you know, there's a buildup of tension already there. So, like, it's just extra hard.
Yeah.
What would be your takeaway message, like, as we're concluding the podcast? Like, what would you say your takeaway message is for, I guess, anyone going into Pesach with or without in-laws, just like your most practical, you know, piece of advice?
I guess going back to what we were talking about in the beginning, to really get internal. Because you don't want to be, especially in line with what the theme of Pesach is, you don't want to be a victim to Pesach, to your in-laws, to your husband's suggestions, to the kid's schedule. It doesn't feel good as a woman to feel swept with the current. It makes us feel small, it makes us feel too vulnerable, and it makes us lash out. And I think if you're experiencing that, then that is an indicator. It's like that indicator light. Oh my goodness, I have to come back to myself. I have to replenish myself. Take 5 minutes for myself in my room. Go out on a walk. The meal can wait for 5 minutes while I just go out on a walk around the block and just breathe. Do everything that we can to just come back to ourselves, because anytime that we're feeling that victim state, it's not going to end well, usually. Especially with the theme of Pesach being freedom, we don't want to feel like we're imprisoned.
Right.
We really want to feel like we're experiencing the redemption. That's what Hashem wants from us as well. We're not supposed to be suffering over Pesach. He's not trying to make us suffer. This is supposed to be a beautiful Yom Tif. And if I could look at it as it's going to be connecting, it's going to be a holiday of not just connecting with family, but connecting with myself, connecting with, you know, what are the things that are holding me back? Can I look at those limitations, break free from those limitations? That's the whole theme of Pesach. And like really get internal instead of kind of reactive.
Right.
That would be definitely a takeaway. Yeah.
And then if we do stumble upon like a little mishap or a situation that happens over Yom Tif, I know it's like very, like it's very relative to the situation, but I'm curious to know, like, how would we go about explaining to our spouse that this is a need we have? Because I know you touch, you know, on this, your entire relationship course is like all about this, but like, when would you suggest, how would you suggest, in what ways, what words can we use, you know, with our spouse if, let's say, something comes up, be it with the children, with in-laws, whatever it is. Give us those like words that you would use. I know it's very vague and it's super general, so it's kind of like, what do you say to your husband for whatever X, Y, and Z? I don't have like a specific example.
You're saying if an issue comes up and you have something that you want to talk to him about,
right? Like, how would you go about that? In the
do you want to give like an example so that you could work on
like,
that example?
Yeah, I'm so afraid to give examples. I don't know. You give examples. Like, I don't know. I don't want. Like, if I could think of a million examples. I just
okay,
want
let's
to make
say
it
your
personal.
husband wants to invite someone.
Okay.
And you don't want that guest to come, but you can't necessarily say something because that may insult your husband. Is that
okay?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
So let's take a step back. So this person that your husband wants to invite is family? Is it a friend?
Let's say it's family.
Okay. So here's the thing when it comes to family. Anytime that we criticize the others, right? So let's say your spouse's family, it's very intense. Because even if, you know, let's say your husband hates his brother, you know, or like really doesn't like him, he gets on his nerves. The second you say that, you're attacking him. Because his brother,
it's a piece of him.
It's a piece of him. It's his identity. Even if he doesn't appreciate that person, it's still him. So it's really disrespectful. And I feel like women can also relate to that. It doesn't feel good when our husband criticizes our mother, you know, or our father, or anyone in our family, really, because push comes to shove, that person is someone we deeply love and identify with, and that's a part of
Okay, so step
who we
one,
are.
don't criticize.
Right. No attacking.
Try not to attack family members. Then the other piece would be, let's say it's not a family member. Let's say it's just he wants to bring home people from shul. right? And you're like, I have so many guests. I don't need another guest. I need to know a certain amount of people who are coming. I need to know who I'm setting for, right? So the first thing that I would suggest is to first see that there's a lot of value in your husband being that kind of person.
Right.
He wants to have an open home. He's looking out for other people who don't have a meal necessarily. Like there's so much beauty in that. There's so much value in seeing this person, your husband, who's willing to do that. It's not fun necessarily to have unexpected guests. Like he might just want to connect with his family and your brothers and, you know, whoever his people are. And instead he's expanding himself and he's inviting people into his home. So there's a lot of value in that. So I would first generate the feelings of he's not trying to hurt me, right? He's not trying to work against me. He's not my enemy. B, to look at him as someone who has value. Like this is actually a beautiful thing.
And actually, if I could interject here,
Yeah.
Hindi is like very much somebody who practices what she preaches, because this literally happened to you with your shul, right?
Oh, yes.
Literally the same thing.
Yes.
Like your husband, this was during COVID. I remember you saying the story. So like during COVID, her husband decided to like open up a shul in her home, and that's her space. But she first, like when she wrapped her head around it, I think you said the first thing was like, you wanted to see that your husband's nature was a giver and he wanted to include everyone, and similar exactly to what you're saying. And I think that's so powerful that you really tapped into that and you could internalize that.
Yeah, it's such a powerful thing to be able to see value in what the other person is bringing to you.
Right. And not only that, you took a step past that and you were like, whenever I needed my space, I just walked around the block. My sister's always telling me that she'll see you walking, and like she's giving respect to her husband, who really, really has this passion of opening up. Well, now it's not in your house, I know that, but opening up his home, and you're doing it in such a beautiful way. You're taking care of your needs by airing out, just walking. You enjoy walking, I know that about you. But I think this is so powerful that you really practice what you preach. Sorry to interject, but go on.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I think what's important also to recognize is when you see that value, right? So like, let's say the value of my husband opening up our home to build a community and to share his love for Yiddishkeit, love for davening with other people and grow community. It's not just his value that is cool. It's also something that contributes to me.
Yeah.
Right? So like, let's say in this example, so a husband who brings home guests, someone who is sensitive to notice other people who don't have a meal, that sensitivity is something that is also a contribution to me. It's not just, okay, this is his thing. This is something that he brings to me all the time. I have a husband who's sensitive.
He has that
That's
energy,
special.
And he's spilling it over to everybody around him, including his wife.
Right.
But it's also a compliment. I mean, he, first of all,
he
thinks you do a good job with cooking, and
he could just bring home random people.
No, like no, for real. He thinks that you can handle it.
Yeah, right. He trusts you.
Right.
Yeah.
That's very powerful.
So to be able to respond to his suggestion or to his idea from a space of, I see how much value you're bringing, and I appreciate that, and I'm really receiving that, is amazing. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have guests every single meal because he had this idea. You don't have to suffer just because he has this incredible value and you receive from it. You could also honor your own voice, right? So what would the conversation look like? It would be receiving him, really respecting that he has this incredible value, and then looking within and saying, okay, and what do I want here? It's not what I don't want, which is I don't want to feel overwhelmed, I don't want to feel stressed, because that's not his problem. That's something that you have to do to take care of yourself and take care of your overwhelm, regulate yourself. It's not really his responsibility. So it would be something along the lines of like, what do I want my meal to be like? What do I want when he's saying he wants to bring guests? Do I want that? And someone might actually check in with herself and say, actually, I also want that. Like, I remember when we were dating, I always discussed how I wanted that. I forgot about that. Or it could be, I love that idea, I respect that idea, and I would love to eat with just family at this and this meal.
Right.
Right? And to say that not in a way of like she's putting her foot down and she's telling him what to do.
Working out a compromise, like, okay, we can do it this meal, but not necessarily all the meals.
Right.
Right. Or at least she's honoring her voice and trusting that he wants to show up for her. Right. So technically, if you use this kind of recipe, what you're doing is you're receiving from him, right? You're seeing his value and you're bringing that in, and you think that's so powerful. It is something that actually contributes to you. And then when you're expressing what you want, trusting that he wants also what you want, he wants to make you happy, then what happens is both parties are happy. It's not necessarily like a compromise where both sides kind of feel like they're conceding. Here, he wants to make you happy. And you also deeply value what he's bringing. So you're both receiving in a way.
Beautiful. That's very nice. All right. I feel like just one last point, because I'm just like, it's coming up in my mind. Your takeaway message for this last point was very powerful, because usually we don't think about like thinking of the good right away. We're automatically on attack mode because someone attacked, or not attacked, but like let's say someone did something to harm you and you're quickly like trying to, defend yourself. Or so I like that method of like, look at the beauty in it. But let's say there is no beauty in it. So like, for example, that friend who was on the phone with me, I was like trying to like rationalize like what is going on in your brain. Like, you don't have to be there for every meal. I mean, you both live, close by to each other. You can be home for some meals. You're going to turn over your kitchen anyway. And she was like, no, you don't get it. We would have to be there from start to finish. So like, okay, hopefully this is not a common issue, but I'm curious to know when you can find that goodness in your spouse, because I don't know, I feel like that's very intense. What would you say to that?
Yeah, that's a more complicated situation where it sounds like the husband is putting his foot down and he's not open to hearing what she wants, what she's suggesting, and that's a very painful dynamic to be in, because it's not right. If we're going to be honest, it's not necessarily just about Yom Tov meals. That could probably be coming up in other areas of their relationship as well. So when it comes to something like that, I would have to say I would invite her to coaching through it, because it's a dynamic already. It's not just happening right here around Yom Tov meals.
An issue that's happening.
Yeah.
It's something deeper that's going on in their relationship that, to me, she can definitely do a lot with. I speak to women all the time who are going through something like that. A lot of my clientele are experiencing that, and at the same time, it's not. I don't want to disrespect her situation by answering it as if it's an easy question to answer. Really, it's a deeper question to answer, and it's really a dynamic that should be explored with support.
That's okay. So it's very every issue is really tailored for itself. Like, we can't, like, this is not like a general thing.
Yeah.
But also, like, I think that's another thing that you're bringing up, is that a lot of issues that come up on Pesach are actually deeper issues, and they're rooted, like, they probably come up like throughout your whole marriage, and they should be fixed and addressed.
Yeah.
Right away, you can tap into something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that was very powerful. Thank you, Hindi. That was so. Do we have any last thoughts? Anything else? I feel like we touched on like a lot of different issues. I would say, like, on a whole, I feel like I got a lot of positivity through this whole message. I feel like we were focusing on not what not to do, but what to do. Reframing, self-care.
Can you say that phrase again? It's the real one?
The real one.
Oh, be real until you feel real.
Be real until you feel real. We need to make a screensaver of it. Yeah.
Bumper sticker,
screensaver, screen. What's it called? Wallpaper.
Yeah, or on our status. Yeah, yeah. But that's excellent. I really feel like, because when I read that article, I was like, wow, I thought this was like lying. But no, it's really like creating that image for yourself that you want to be. And obviously you're hoping for a good image of yourself, right? So like, you're striving to be that confident person. You're striving to be that wholesome, amazing mother, wife, whatever it is. So be real until you feel real. Is that what it is? Yeah, okay. Amazing.
Be real until you feel real.
I love it. Okay, that's going to be our new
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Hindi. Thanks for your time. And
be sure to also, if you want to hear more of Hindi, she has a podcast also that she recently started. Do you want to say the name?
Yeah, it's called We Create Relationships, and you could find it on all platforms. And yeah, I'm excited.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to our Mommy Life Squad podcast.
And stay tuned for the next episode.